The second question, would you go back to my apartment with me tonight? That's in the middle block of data there. One group, only 6% answered yes, and 69% answered yes. I'm not telling you who, but you could probably figure it out. The third question was, would you sleep with me tonight? That's represented by the third block of data, where 0% of one group said yes. Not one member of this gender said yes. Not one. Whereas 75% of the other gender said, sure. Did you want me to bring a bottle of wine? So you can guess the difference there. It's obviously the men were only too willing. We really are built quite differently. And there's probably deep evolutionary reasons for this. I looked for a graphic and I found this. This is the reason for that data set. For those of you in the back that can't quite see, on the top labeled man, it's just a little toggle switch in a very upright position there. And this is all the other stuff there. Still trying to find the manual. I threw it away, unfortunately. I went online to get it, and it wasn't there. Well, the point is this, is that, so let's say you're a guy thinking, okay, do unto others. How would I feel if, this woman asked me if I wanted to have sex tonight? Well, I'd be pretty happy about that, but she might not. So you can't just ask yourself. That's the problem with the do unto others, is you would have them do unto you. You have to ask somebody else. Now, maybe you can't really ask, but you can at least do the thought experiment, or ask somebody who you can ask, how do you think she would feel if I asked her? Ask your sister or your friend who you're not romantic with, or somebody that might be honest with you, something like that. That's the idea of the ask first principle. Ask. When in doubt, ask. The happiness principle, okay. One of the fundamental drives of human nature is that we all strive for greater levels of happiness, and we avoid greater levels of unhappiness. However, these are personally defined. It's just kind of I'm going for the emotion. These are emotions which evolved as part of a suite of emotions that make up the human psyche. Humans have a host of moral and immoral passions, including being selfish and selfless, competitive and cooperative, so on, nasty and nice. It is natural and normal to try to increase your own happiness by whatever means available, even if it means being selfish, competitive, and nasty, and we all do that. Fortunately, evolution also created both sets of passions, such that by nature we also seek to increase our own happiness by being selfless, cooperative, and even nice once in a while. So the happiness principle states simply that it is a higher moral principle to always seek happiness with somebody else's happiness in mind, and never seek happiness when it leads to someone else's unhappiness. Now, by the way, these are just kind of theoretical concepts. I'm not claiming I practice this better than anybody else. These things are hard to actually live up to. Simple in theory, difficult in practice. However, with training, obedience training for humans, maybe that's my next book. You do have these strong impulses to act a certain way, and that's why we have culture. It is really, seriously, one of the reasons why we have religion. It is, in many ways, a set of rules of behavior control. It's a recognition that, look, we know what people really want to do, and that's why we're telling you every week you shouldn't do it as a reminder, because it's hard to overcome those deep impulses. And finally, the liberty principle. I consider this even a higher moral level to which we can strive, and that is freedom and autonomy, or liberty. Liberty is the freedom to pursue happiness and the autonomy to make decisions and act on them in order to achieve that happiness. So the liberty principle states it is a higher moral principle to always seek liberty with somebody else's liberty in mind, and never seek liberty when it leads to someone else's loss of liberty. I was trying to find a visual for this, and here's one. We have to give people the freedom to pursue their happiness and autonomy in whatever ways they want. This guy, if you can't read that in the back, he has need cash for alcohol research. At least he's honest. And I should note parenthetically, I guess the liberty principle really, it needs a political system. It doesn't really even begin. The concept of liberty, particularly political liberty, doesn't really begin until the rise of states. And the concept we're used to is so new, it's only a couple centuries old. However, I'm pretty optimistic, actually, although recent history always seems kind of discouraging. But if we look at the long run, say the last 400 years, There has been more autonomy, more liberty for more people in more places, more of the time, and I think that's good human progress. I think in the long run, things are getting better. Point 6, 2 to go. Provisional justice. Well, okay, so the theist says, all right, there's no God and anything goes and so on. Well, where's their justice? I mean, Hitler just got away with it? Is that it? Is that what you're telling me? Bad people just get away with it. So we have to deal with that. The fact is, good things and bad things happen to both good and bad people. We always remember when bad things happen to good people, but things happen to everybody. There is no absolute and ultimate judge to mete out rewards and punishments at some future date beyond human existence. There just isn't, so we can't count on that. Or if there is, we can't prove it. So we won't know until we get there, and we're not there, so we have to deal with it now. But since moral principles are provisionally true for most people, most of the time, in most circumstances, there is individual culpability and social justice within human communities that produce feelings of righteousness and guilt and mete out rewards and punishments. I think the rebuttal to that, as it were, if it needs one, comes from Darwin himself. I love this quote from The Origin of Species. "When I view all beings not as special creations, but as the lineal descendants of some few beings which lived long before the first bed of the Cambrian system was deposited, they seem to me to become ennobled." And I just like that word, ennobled. It's a nice word. It's an uplifting word. Ennobling. In fact, evolutionary ethics is ennobling. It's more ennobling than a theistic system, I think. In fact, if there is no outside source, how much more important it is that we have standards that we practice now. The idea that, well, yeah, maybe he gets away with it now, but he won't in the long run, then what? You're not going to deal with it now? The here and now is what really counts. So morality exists outside the human mind, this is my argument, in the sense of being not just a trait of individual humans, us in the room, but it's a human trait. It's a human universal. And that evolution created these moral sentiments and the concomitant behaviors over hundreds of thousands of years, so that today, even though we agree that humans created morality and ethics, it's not us who creates these, you and I sitting here in the room. It was our Paleolithic ancestors who did in those long-gone millennia. We simply inherit them, fine-tune and tweak them according to our cultural preferences, and apply them within our unique historical circumstances. So I'm going to wrap it up with a sort of a long quote here. This is from a review of my book in the Washington Post, the review of How We Believe, from Michael Novak. He's really a beautiful writer. But he sets up, I think, the problem and then allows me to give the answer to it, which I did at the end of the book. "Science is a method for gaining important forms of knowledge," he writes. "Scientism is the reduction of all forms of knowing to scientific method. Shermer certainly comes perilously close to the latter. Still, he tries valiantly to maintain a sense of the sublime, the sacred, even the mystical, as in describing his exchange of eternal love with his soulmate over lit candles inside Chartres Cathedral, or standing beneath a canopy of galaxies, atop a pillar of reworked stone, or inside a transept of holy light, when, quote, my unencumbered soul was free to love without constraint and was emancipated from the bonds of restricting tradition and unyoked from the rules written for another time in another place for another people, close quote, quoting me. The beauty of being Shermer is that he faces no judge, undeceivable, transcendent of nature, and within him as well as beyond him. And he stands in no long pilgrim community, struggling down the ages, falling, rising, and throwing cathedrals like Chartres up against the sky cathedrals. He is a free rider. Well, at first I thought, yeah, I'm a free rider. Yeah, because that feels good. I'm going to get on my bike and go. However, I'm not really. None of us are, whether you believe in God or not. I am a free rider, but only in the freedom from one set of cultural traditions, usually gathered under the umbrella of religion. But like everyone else, I face judges that are in their own way transcendent and powerful. Family and friends, colleagues and peers, mentors and teachers, and my society at large. My judges may be lower-cased and occasionally deceivable, but they are transcendent of me as an individual, even if they are not transcendent of nature. As such, together, we all stand in a long pilgrim community struggling down the evolutionary and historical ages, trying to live and love and learn to temper our temptations and to do the right thing. I may be free from God, but the God of nature holds me to her temple of judgment